Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar, NX Line Designer and FactoryCAD Workshop, a window into the plant. But we're going to start with a quick overview of our agenda, specifically with a little bit about geometric solutions, who we are, and how we can help you. Then we'll jump into our main topic, specifically how to quickly design and visualize layouts of production lines using drag and drop tools, including standard components into your line, leveraging point cloud scan data for the retrofit of existing plants, and color coding visualizations of your manufacturing equipment, including component type, design, change, suppliers, investment costs, and building dates. Our presenter today is Curtis DeSaele, Director of Technology at Geometric Solutions. Curtis has more than 30 years of experience in manufacturing technology. Since 1984, Curtis has been at the forefront of digital simulation, specifically related to virtual prototyping and dimensional quality. He is recognized internationally as an expert in digital simulation using 3D tolerance analysis simulation tools. He has experience using all the major CAD software platforms, all the major PDMs, and many different CAE tools, and multiple digital simulation applications. As you will see, Curtis enjoys the blending of new technology, software, and best in practice or best in class processes, all while driving the need for quality, resulting in the reduction of overall costs.
Thanks, Madeline.
Now, no problem. Now for a quick intro into who we are. The Waltonen family is made up of 3 companies located throughout the Midwest: Waltonen Engineering, Independence Tooling, and Geometric Solutions. Our story is simple. Waltonen develops innovative engineering solutions using Siemens software. We got so good at it, Geometric Solutions started selling the same potential for success in the form of Siemens software. Independence Tooling also uses this software while building out tooling solutions. As for how we can help you, our ability to succeed comes from us using the softwares that we sell every day. Experience goes a long way when you are looking to effectively implement and optimize this technology, so you want experts in your corner with real-world experience. We have over 160 seats of NX, 12 seats of Process Simulate, and 3 seats of Plant Simulation. We utilize variation analysis, DPV, Team Center, Mechatronics Concept Designer, and more. So when it comes to implementing and optimizing these solutions like an expert, Geometric Solutions can get you there. Now with that, I'm happy to turn the reins over to our resident expert, Curtis. Go ahead and take it away.
Thank you, ma'am. That was a great introduction, and let's get to this. Okay, so today's topic is really going to be focusing around line planning. And what we're doing is making a digital twin of the physical production system. What we're trying to do is do this to do multiple things. Try to do projects in less time. These digital twins can be used downstream in simulation models. And if you have those, how can we make those all work seamlessly? If you have a lot of layouts in X, Y, and Z, but none of them seem up to date, that's a common problem. Making sure that all the different versions of the plant floor that we have are all up to date, and we have one single source of truth. And then, we can do this in 3D, just as easy or even easier than it is in 2D. But if we need 2D, we're going to show you how we can make 2D drawings with a couple of button pushes. So with that, what we're going to do is just talk about line planning. So you can see on the left here, I got like 6 subjects we're going to go through. And I'm going to talk about the first one, scanning your factory. Many times we have a greenfield facility where no work is being done in it. It's a brand new blank facility, and that's easy. But many times we're retrofitting an existing plant, or sometimes retrofitting an existing line. So to find out what we have in the plant from the existing line or the existing monuments, the columns and everything, were they made to print? There's ways to scan data in and use that as the foundation before we start putting our line together. So we're going to talk about scanning your factory, the scans create point clouds, how to put that in there, how to make measurements between the point clouds and avoid collisions. So that's the goal of using this, is to make sure wherever we're putting new stuff in, it fits within the existing environment. So here we have a little model here we're going to start up. I'm going to pull in a point cloud scan. Right now it was black and white, but I changed it to color. And you can see here, I have a 3D scan of the plant and all the pieces that are around it. I don't need all that for what I'm trying to do. So there's tools in here to help take stuff away and put stuff in. So here I just did a square on the floor, put a couple of dots on there, raising it up so I have my height on it. And now I've created a volume of data that I'm going to use. Everything else just stripped away so I don't have that noise. But what I'm going to do is this robot here, we're changing it. So what I want to do is remove the old robot and make the new one fit in and make sure it doesn't collide with anything. So what I'm going to do here is do a reverse, clipping, and I'm actually going to clip the part out. And so I tried to clip that robot out. Whoop, but I made a mistake. I didn't get the tail end of it here. So I can go back in real quickly and edit that cut that I did to my point cloud. And I grab it there, and I'm now going to grab that box and just change one of my bounding box points. And as I do that, I'm going to pull it towards me here and remove that piece of information. So it's easy to work with these point clouds, take things out, put things in, but I know where everything around my new design is going to go in. So now I'm going to go into my library, and this is the power of Line Designer. I went into my library, grabbed a robot, and dropped it into place. So now I can see this new robot, its new operations. I can see how it's all going to work against this. And since this is all being done in NX, Line Designer is a add-on to NX. It is measurable. I can measure between any of those points in that part to see if I, have the room for everything, swing, whatever the case may be of the robot, and validate that I'm doing a good design. Here we have a situation that, once I put these things in from the library, this robot, I can show different versions of it. So here I have with all the cables and all the wiring. Here's a 2D view of it. Here it is without the wires and cables, and I can just check on it to make sure it's all good. If I have Team Center and I'm working with Team Center, I can actually see it against Team Center and launch my simulation. In this case, I'm doing Process Simulate, where I'm actually programming my robot, offline programming, and I'm using my Line Designer model as my starting point. So once I have that in there, I'm going to rotate it here to make it more applicable for what I'm trying to do. And I'm going to mount a tool to it. So in Process Simulate, if I have a tool at the end, a gripper, whatever it happens to be, that's going to pick parts up, I can actually test that. And you can see I'm going to grab a part and I'm going to swing itself up and over the top, and it's twisted, and it's not the best way to do it. So maybe what I want to do is design my robot to be in a new place. So Process Simulate has a smart placement tool, and it identifies where the base of this can be. Anything in blue is good. So I'm going to say move it to that point, and that will allow just a simple arc to go from side to side. So I can pick up my part and it swings and it doesn't twist on itself and be upside down. So this is the input came from Line Designer, but if I make this update in Process Simulate, it's great because now it talks back to Line Designer. So I'm going to pull up my new Line Designer, and you notice the robot's moved. It's moved into that new position. So I got one master, and it's being communicated back and forth between the two. If I have Team Center, I can go in here and look at attachments, and I can actually go in that robot and find the specs for it. So I can have that as a reference. So when I pull in my library parts, I can have other things in there just versus the parts. I can have reference material, internal design standards, whatever I'd like, I can attach that to that so I have that at my reference. In addition to this, I can actually, this conveyor I have in here, I can actually see the specs on it. It's 5.5 meters long. It says that. If I pull the same model into Process Simulate, it's an input into Process Simulate. You can see that 5.5 meters is showing up in there. It knows how, the processing time of that robot. They're all interlinked to each other. So when I do Process Simulate and I actually run it, it's actually running it at the speed of the conveyor, and the simulation works flawlessly because I'm using one integrated model, one source of truth that through Team Center, they all talk to each other. So if I update it one, it automatically works in the next one. So that comes up with a poll question here. Madeline?
Do you have different versions of your plant floor and multiple software tools? Go ahead and pick your answer, and we encourage everybody to please participate. Give everyone one more minute, but make sure you get your answers in. Okay, and here are the results. Looks like we have a three-way tie between one version in 2D CAD, multiple versions, and they mostly match, and multiple versions and they never match.
Yeah, that's I'm gonna say that's quite common, except for we were working with a company just recently that had a it was basically it was sketched on the back of a piece of notebook paper, and it was very hard to envision how they were doing it because it was actually a sketch. But some companies just have the 1D drawing, which is traditional and commonplace. But doing it in 3D is nice. But with all the different versions of it, using Line Designer with NX or inside NX with Team Center allows you to manage all those different versions. So if you update one, it updates the other, and it makes it seamless for you having the correct version or the most up-to-date version. Let's put it that way. Okay. All right. So, oops. Come on, mouse. There we go. All right. So we talked about getting, layouts faster by using point clouds, but let's just talk about layouts without, with or without scans. So what we want to do is quickly create concepts or layouts, block out layouts, create detailed layouts, and using a managed library and parametric equipment. And we'll talk about that. What's nice is these parametric equipment, we can have information in there. For example, that last one we showing the CNC machine that robot was going in and out of, the processing time was in there as a parameter, and then that way it's all tied and in one general reference area. So here we have plant simulation going, and we're actually going to create a little subline here. And there's different libraries here, and from fixtures and machines, and I can go into the subgroups and grab things and put it in there. Because I am using some standards that our company has, I created a special library that's just linked to the main ones, and it allows me to drag and drop items in here. So I have tables, I have conveyors, so I'm going to take this palletized conveyor and drop it in place. So this is a standard conveyor, quote unquote, off the shelf from the supplier. And what's nice is I can actually take this and change its sizes to standard sizes. So off the shelf, I can buy different ones. So these parameters here are inputs to the supplier. So I just changed the width to 750 millimeters. I add a second one on there. It's going in the wrong direction, so I reversed it. The arrow shows flow. I can add work tables. In this case, I'm going to add a Motoman robot here that is going to be working at that table. I can drag and drop more conveyors because when he's done, it's going to go off to the next station. And you can see this is fairly simple. I'm dragging and dropping and, putting in versions that I want. Now this conveyor doesn't be as long. I'm going to shorten it up and make sure it goes to a standard length. You notice these are even 100 millimeter numbers because that's the way I can buy the conveyors. So it's predefined by the way the supplier can make the products for you. This workbench, we have it defined as a standard workbench, but since it's basically a piece of steel with 4 legs, we allow it to be totally customized. And so here, once I have it in place, I can actually change its size, pretty simple. And I can go in there and actually change the width and the length, and it automatically adjusts, which is great. And then there's some options that I can add to it. for cabinets on one end or the other. I just have to click on a dot to do that. So once I have this little cell lined up, I'm going to add a couple more things. I'm going to add another workbench to the tail end of it, and it's in the wrong position, but it remembered what the last one was and it defaulted to that. So here I'm putting a bin on my pallet or my conveyor, and I'm going to put some storage bins on the back side. This is basically where I'm going to deliver all my parts when I'm done, to take them from the conveyor to the storage bins. I'm putting a human in there and orientating that person. So I'm doing a layout not only for the line, but the humans. I can throw in walk paths. I can put all that information in. And eventually I'll get to that point where I'm going to do the walk paths because I need to know time studies. And here I have components coming into my system, and they're being provided to me on a rack. And I have a human that will take them and do some working on it. In addition to that line, I have some storage facilities here. I'm going to have a rack. I'm actually going to put in the controller for that robot. And in addition to that controller, I also have to put in the operator gate that basically tells me if the thing's live and moving. I want them tied up against the wall, so I'm just going to readjust these real quickly and manually. And you can see here that, it's simple drag and drop. In this case, I'm trying to plan out how my line is going to go and make sure I have enough room for everything. Now that I have it, I can validate it. I can show it to my team. And I have this little subline built up, all in 3D. It didn't take me long to do it. And all these components were drag and drop. I already have them in my library. And that's the power of Line Designer, is I can drag and drop my systems in there. But I can do other things. So I can take this entire cell and I can, in this case it's called mirror, but it's a wizard that's going to allow me to put things in or a pattern. And what I'm going to do is create a pattern of these. And I said I want X amount of these. So, I want 10 of them in there. And I want it over this distance. And you notice as I was dragging it, those dots were moving. That's kind of putting the placement of where the cells are. And here we have 10 identical cells, but they're tied back to the original. If I make a change in the original, I can force the other ones to update, or I can just do them one by one and break the link. So this is nice, and it puts in even all the side equipment, the tables and the robot controllers. So the power of Line Designer, I can quickly design my plant with drag and drop, standard library components. So I can create them quickly, in 3D, but not only can I do it in 3D quickly, I can actually do some photorealistic renderings, show it to your customer, internal decision maker. Sometimes your finance people don't understand the details of it, so I can actually make it in 3D, and then I can export it to a PDF and a 3D PDF that allows you to see it and spin it in 3D. So here we have that line, and if I want to take that and make it photorealistic, I can actually put shadows, I can put perspective onto it. I can turn off some features here to make it make sure that I don't see things, but I can put connectors in there and other things to show how paths are moving. And there's some predefined scenes that are made up. So I can change the background, I can change the amount of shadows, but I can also put in backgrounds. So here I happen to have a industrial warehouse, and you can see I just took that 3D and rotated it in there so I can make it look like it's sitting in a real facility. And if you do have pictures of your plant, you can actually use that as your backdrop here and actually drag and drop, put them in there. It's a great sales pitch, great tool for showing like I said, some of the non-technical people what's going on so they can see it and get a vision of what's going to happen in their mind. So it's a great tool for that. So the poll question I have is here. So go ahead, Madeline, I'll let you take it.
Do you ever need to make pretty concept pictures to show management or customers?
I think everybody's being shy. I don't see anybody voting. Oh, there we go.
Give everyone one more minute or so, but make sure you get your answers in. Okay, and then it looks like sometimes is our top answer with sales and marketing team just behind it.
Yeah. What's great about a tool like this as line designer is I can quickly, you saw how quick and easy that was. I took my concept, I dragged and dropped it into this environment where I can put shadows, make it very photorealistic. I can even put like, steel and chrome and all those types of reflective surfaces onto the product to make it even look more realistic. But this was really quick and easy, and it allows you to do that. And if you have a marketing team that does this helps eliminate some of their needs because they can do it real quick and easy too, because the work's already been done for them. So thank you, Madeline. Okay, so convincing concepts, we just talked about that, showed you that. But I want to talk about layouts in the way that line design works and how it's more than just 3D, right? So we can put attributes on equipment. Who the supplier is that supplies it. Is it a purchase part, a make part, cost, power consumption? I can, weight if that makes a difference. I can put in data sheets and maintenance documents in there and automate the creation and update of drawings. So we're going to, show you this here. So here I have a line that I'm already working on, and I'm actually going to be using this in further down simulations. So if I have this material, so I can tell if it's purchased item, I can tell if it's a long lead item. So purchasing knows what has to be ordered early. So if that parameter is inside my system, I can actually look for that. And then what's great is I can pick any one of these variables. So like here, I can pick the suppliers, and the different colors tell me where I'm buying it from. So the red supplier is coming from Siemens. The teal colors coming from, another company. So I can actually see who I'm buying things from. So if I know I'm buying a lot from one customer, it gives purchasing a little more, clout in making sure everything gets done. I can change that to a different type of attribute I'm going to look for. So in this case, just waiting for it to catch up. Due dates, it is a due date been set on it. This part's actually out there. There's no due date on it when it has to be purchased. So I can actually add that as an attribute and make sure that item is going to be purchased on time. So also there's a higher revision on it. I don't have the latest version on this part that's in orange. So I can see that my example here that I had up for diagnostic, that means somebody's working on it, it's not finished, it hasn't been released. So I can actually see that part, find it, so I know from a purchasing standpoint or from a project management standpoint where my entire plant is. And I'm using these visual systems to do it. So I can actually check for long lead time items and make sure I got all of those released and out to purchase orders cut, so I get those things in on time so I can meet my due dates on the plant floor. So this visual designer is a great tool to help me just see what's going on from a project management perspective. In addition to that, here's that same cell we've been talking about. And I can actually go and find information about that, stand on a different item. I can look at these attachments for these items, which are things that we have in there. And some of these are CAD, but there's no file in here for the spec sheet. So I can actually take the spec sheet from that supplier and add that in here, write a little description of what it's for, the data sheet, and for that robot. And if I add that, I can actually put that in the file. Now, from now on, anytime anybody's using that, they can actually find the spec sheet. And I'm just going to open that up as a PDF. Oops, Go on back. There it is. So there's a spec sheet for it. And it tells reach and availability and all that good stuff. So it's a great tool to store all that stuff. It's not hidden in my desk and the next engineer can't find it. It allows me to commonly store this stuff all in Team Center if I have this all linked together with Team Center. So going to drawings, right? So here I have this 3D file, but a lot of companies like flat 2D drawings. There's a button here, I can hit flatten it and it creates a nice flat drawing for me, right? So I now can show that drawing and I'm just going to real quickly put some title block information in here and create a drawing for this. And there's my drawing, right? So it shows all the pieces that I have in there. Also, I want to inherit PMI, the product manufacturing information. I customize the length and the width of these. So when I purchase these components, I need to send information to the supplier so they make the right size one for me. Just by hitting a button, anything that's not standard off the shelf and is customized or semi-custom, it documents that information so I can make sure I get the right products in the right place when I do install on the plant floor, and the purchasing team knows what exactly to order. So it's not, they don't have to go look at the 3D CAD, I actually can document it in a drawing. So you can see these are fairly simple to create these drawings. They're not, too much difficulty there. So once I create it, I made a PDF and I can share that with my team and away it goes. So documenting is real easy with this. In addition, I can go even a step further. So here I have this product and I can create outlines for this so I can make a 2D drawing. So I can actually have them both showing at the same time in my 3D realm. And I can add it to my reference set so I can easily pick it. So before I didn't have that available. So now I have a 2D plan view of that. So this is a conveyor. Parts are moving from side to side. It's going around the loop. But I don't know which way it's going, which way is the front and which way is the back. So I can actually turn off some of these views, open up the 2D plan view in NX and into the design portion of it. And I'm going to turn off my bodies here. And I can now do something as simple as look at that view square on and actually start adding and modifying my 2D sketch. I'm not changing my 3D design. I'm just taking the 2D sketch of this and modifying it. So I'm just going to simply create a rectangle here. And this rectangle is just going to be an arrow that I'm going to create. And with a couple of mouse clicks, I can actually create a couple of lines. And give me a second here. Make the rest of my arrow. And there we go. So now I have an arrow. It's only on the 2D drawing portion of it. So I finish that sketch. And now when I go back to my view where I'm showing the solid bodies and everything else, you can see my solid body doesn't have it. It's only on the 2D view. So I can customize this to make it meet my requirements for viewing, depending on what I want to do. And I can get to that view now that I've saved it with this assembly. And it's in my library now. So the next time I pull this exact same thing up, it's already there. So that's what's powerful about this. Even if you have a standard library component, you can easily modify things to meet your internal needs or your documentation needs. And it stays in that library for the next time you reuse it. So let's just talk about, which is the right representation. So here we have a robot with all the cables, up on top, that's a little vision sensor to see where things are, right? So I got the complete view of it. I can actually pick just a simplified 3D view of it. I can actually show the sweep and the reach of the tool, and I can just show it in 2D. So, depending on what I'm trying to do, I have had many 3D layouts that I've done, but I have 2D views of everything on the floor because I don't need it. I don't, depending on what I'm trying to do, I'm just looking for bolt hole patterns on the floor where I need to put in anchors. So I can make a layer or a drawing that has just the anchor points, but I have just 2D sketches, outlines of the product without any details, so I can see what's going on. So here's that same model I had earlier today. And I'm grabbing my part, and you can see I'm just switching between it. I'm just dropping down for the detailed view of what I'm showing, and I'm just replacing the reference sense with a different view of the same reference sense. If I go into different tools, like here I'm in Team Center, and I've pushed it out to Process Simulate. It's a simulation tool for simulating our process, so we can actually do our offline programming of that robot. And so here I'm actually changing the angle, and let's see, I'm going to mount a end of arm effector. So I got a gripper that's going to it. So now I've attached that, and I'm telling it that it's attached to that robot. So that gripper is going to go down. You see it'll close, it'll come up, swing around to the other side, and open it up. All right. So if I go back to, I'm going to do my smart placement so it's in the right spot, because I want it in the right spot. I did that earlier. And now that I have it in the spot that can reach, this was that smart placement, it shows me every spot that the base of that robot can be, and it can reach the target positions for the beginning and the end of its reach. So, but now that I've saved that end of arm effector onto the end of the robot, when I pull it up to Line Designer, it's automatically there. They keep that link, the knowledge. You know, I have one master, and if I have the authority to change it, it updates it for everybody else to see. In addition, I can see specs for the individual components. Come on. And here's that robot, you know, the details, so I can find all that stuff. So it's very handy. So I can find out everything I need to know in one spot. Okay. So here I have, oh, well, again, it's just going through some of the same thing I had before. So, technical data package, I want to publish these drawings. So here I have this line. So I'm going to pick different formats. I'm going to grab one that I want, and what view I want. I'm not going to put a password on it, but I'm going to create a drawing. I'm going to give it a part number because I need to call this line something. So this is workstation, you know, 1000th one, you know, and it's sub-zoned, and I put a date on it, and, you know, enter my name. So once I have this, it's going to take this, and based on my technical data package, my predefined thing, I'm going to make a 3D PDF of this package. This is something you can give to folks. What's nice about this is, being that it's a 3D PDF, they don't have to have your CAD system. They don't have to have any of that information. It's all inside here. So my default template that I have a bill of material for all the purchase components. And you can see here, this is a PDF, and I'm actually spinning the part in 3D, which is, you know, kind of powerful. I can actually zoom in, I can see things, I can do all that type of stuff, and there's a bunch of options. You know, I got tools for measuring different views. I can change, you know, whether it's cross sections or 2D views. I can, you know, effectively look at that. I can actually take that bill of material and identify the parts in there. So as I, you know, go through this tree on the left, you can see I'm standing on it, and that red fence shows up when I, you know, stand on that line item. So I can jump through the system and see what the name of it is compared to, you know, the bill of materials. You know, that way there's kind of a correlation back and forth. In addition, I can measure, you know, so I can just do some simple measurements of, here I'm going to grab this fence post, measure to the other one, and it's telling me that it's roughly 900 millimeters apart. So I know these distances. I can, you know, that just, you know, it's a very powerful tool to hand to somebody who isn't in your organization that has your tools and access to it, so that they can measure, see, inquiry, and see what's in the bill of materials. So, you know, we just showed you one drawing there, but I can actually automate that so it's at different layers. We use these tools on a regular basis when we make plant drawings. My parent company, Walton Engineering, they make a drawing for every anchor on the floor. They make a drawing for the system put together. They make drawings just for wiring. So, they can do individual drawings, and I can automate that if I have the template set up. So with that, Madeline, I don't know if you can take this on.
Yes. Do you make different levels of construction drawings for building the plant? Give everyone one more minute, but make sure you get your vote in there. Okay. And it looks like we have a clear winner with so many, I can't count them.
Yeah, that's interesting because I see like 80% or so of you voted and you all came up with the same answer. What's great about a tool like this is once I set it up and I start setting up my templates for drawings, they're extremely easy to make because you're trying to get the same information out of them all the time. And if I have a 3D PDF like that, I can measure them. Or if I need to, I can actually put dimensions on there like a traditional drawing. But there's many ways to allow that to happen with these line designer tools. Thank you, Madeline. Okay, so a layout is more than 3D. We're going to talk about some attributes and managing additional data, basically some documents that go with it. So we're going to do material flow models, optimize throughput, and make educated decisions on alternatives. If I'm going to lay out the plant one way or another, what can I do to make it so I pick the right decision? So here we have an existing plant. Whoops, hold on a second here. There we go. And we have a tool, Siemens has a tool called Plant Simulation. And if I import the model from Team Center, where this is sitting in, I can actually import that line designer line. And if I have my parameters built into it, I can actually retrieve that right from Team Center 2, and it'll be my inputs into my plant simulation. And plant simulation is a logistics and throughput analysis tool. It helps to make sure I can meet the best amount of throughput in the logistics. But you can see I have all types of individual components, and each of these have all these parameters built into it because I put them into my library. So it knows the line speed of conveyors. It just doesn't know the length. So when it gets the length, it goes by the line speed. It multiplies that out to see how long it takes to create that. So it took that line, imported it in, and I can actually analyze this for throughput. And it's going to take the parts. So here you can see I have the length. It figured that out by distance. It knows the speed. It's 1 meter per second. This one's a longer distance. It knows how to work with it. The turntables, the individual processing machines, all of those are put in here. So if I run my simulation, you can see parts are coming through. The turntables are turning parts. It knows how fast it's going. It knows the process of how to put these together. It actually knows how to not have them collide on each other, especially when they're coming through. Sped that up. It actually came back and tells me how fast it was. Now I can do alternatives. I can do what ifs. I can do changes, testing different plans. And I can actually see what is the best way to do this. Those 3 white stations that are here, do I need 3 or do I need 4? Do I need 2 lines, the input to that, to make sure they don't starve? When they come down to 2, is this a bottleneck, or do I need to, so I can do multiple changes here and test it all out, prove that it works. And then once I have it proven out using the same equipment, I can push it back to line designer and do my final tweaking of my design. So it's a great symbiotic relationship these tools have because they're using one common foundation. My line designer platform is my input to this because I'm using parts from my library, and those parts already have some of these parameters that I need for the simulation tools that Siemens have, and this one here is being plant simulation. So, we're minimizing effort to get simulation models being used downstream. So last area is checking feasibility, and I actually got an area after this, some new features that have been added recently, so I'm going to talk about those. So Process Simulate is another tool. It's really robotic simulation and offline programming. I can actually program my robot right from that tool, and I can do human ergonomics evaluation. You know, if the reach is too far for somebody to reach, they might hurt their back. If it's too heavy, they'll tell me if there's any ergonomic issues for humans to pick that up. So, you know, but I'm using that same layout again. So here we have that same layout we were just talking about earlier. And I'm going to go back to Team Center because that's my common communication tool. So I'm going to grab my manufacturing cell and I'm going to open it with Process Simulate. So Process Simulate will start up here. And there we are, we're in Process Simulate. And I can actually go through here and start adding the information that Process Simulate needs to do its model. And so I'm adding features into this. Once I have them in there, I'm actually looking for collision detection first. And I'm noticing these parts that I selected are colliding. When I put that line in there, I didn't put them in the spot. I just eyeballed it, right? Well, I can actually check for collisions in this tool. You know, as soon as I get that away from a collision, boom, the parts don't turn red, all right? I can actually take these collision tools and put a buffer around them. So if I have a standard that the robot has to be at least 6 inches away from a safety fence, I can put a 6-inch buffer on it and make sure that 6-inch buffer doesn't collide. So, you know, that line designer tool is being an input to this. I've made these changes in position. I go and update this back to Team Center. If I open it up and Process Simulate now, those conditions will not happen anymore. So I'll go back here, open this up again. It's going back to Team Center, grabbing that new data. And you can see here that now there's a gap here. And there's a little one up here because I just pulled it and tugged it. I didn't position it finally, but I can position it finally here. And that way it's a one-to-one single source of truth for the positioning of all objects. And using Team Center as the backbone, using Line Designer to create it fast and efficiently, and then using it downstream in my simulations, when I update things, they all talk to each other. And it's a wonderful thing because I only got one source of truth. So I'm going to talk about a couple of other items here, but first, Electrolux, company that has a nice little case study. They've gone through and they've 100% digitized their factory, and they figured they can get products to market 30% faster, basically because they're using Line Designer and these simulation tools to make sure everything's working on the plant floor, and it, you know, solves manufacturing issues. The COO has come back and says, you know, these PLM systems contribute to a strong extent to lower our development time by 20 to 30%. And there's only one truth that is updated all the time. So that's, you know, one of the key things is everybody's marching to the same set of directions. There's one truth. It's not different versions by different groups. So, you know, the digital twin is the heart of the smart factory. And, you know, the goal here is, you know, this digital line is extremely valuable because once I create it, I'm using it. It's not just a dumb drawing. I'm using it as smart, intelligent data. There's some unique tools. One of the add-ons that is out there is we can put this Cadence library on there. And it's unique because Siemens has worked with these 700 plus vendors. And we have this reuse library that is linked directly to their systems, and they're providing and pushing out all their new parts. So what's nice about this is I don't have to go to their websites to get CAD. I can actually go in there, and I'm going to look at the second column here. I need servo motors, and I get it from Festo, and here's every one they have. I can pick it and put it and place it in my model. It simplifies purchasing. And what's nice is when I pull that in, it has data sheets and all that stuff with it. So I don't have to go searching for it. This is a nice way to manage your libraries. Not everybody uses it, but it's a nice add-on. So here's an example of it. This is not Line Designer. This is a product called Mechatronics Concept Designer, but it's the best demo I had for that. So I'm going to go grab one of these reuse things. So I have all these different people to go through, and SICK makes some great sensors. So you see that red dotted line? That's actually going to be a sensor that's going to test to see if a part crosses the path there. So I'm going to drag and drop that sensor across there and put it in. So what's kind of nice is I can pick different models, and when I pick different models, it updates. You know, you can see my sketch updating there. And then what I'm going to do is actually put that into my system where I want it. So I'm going to put one at the end of that sensor line. I'm going to then slide down and put another one in here because I'm using this a few times, but it makes it nice and simple to put these things in. Now, once I have these in, I might have to design a little bracket to hold it, but for planning purposes and for validating things are working, you know, this could be just points in space, early concepts. And eventually, like I said, we're going to have brackets that hold it in place, but I can put all that stuff in there, and it actually has the model number, where to buy it from, all that good stuff is in here. Very good for purchasing and everybody else. So if I want to update it, I update it, and they all update to the new design that I just picked. I can go in there and edit, modify it, make sure it all goes in to my system. So if I want to do, nope, this model isn't available anymore, I can replace it. Cool thing is, as the model, I mean, as their product library updates being offered, this library gets updated by them. They push it to you. So you have the latest library of available parts to be purchased in this library. So very convenient. So, you know, how do you keep up to date off the shelf components? So Madeline? Oh, there it is.
Give everyone one more minute, but make sure you get your vote in. Okay. And it looks like we have a tie between I get a catalog every year and make CAD for what I need, and I download CAD from supplier site for each job.
Yep, that's very common on both of these. You know, in my design and engineering career, you know, I usually find it in the catalog, then I go out to the supplier site to have something. And if they don't, sometimes I go to GrabCAD, something like that, and download the file so I can put it into my system. It takes time. It's step files. I got to convert it. I got to do other things. This is nice. This Cadenas library makes it so automatic. I just have to go find it in the catalog in the library, and it does everything for me. So it's a great tool. So another tool that we have is this Automation Designer. And Automation Designer is a tool that allows you to test the automation, moving parts, control, you know, make things work. And so we can do it for mechatronics, electric and automation, but we can test all these things. And here's an example of it. So I can take my design here and actually take all these individual clamping structures and merge it with, you know, here I am in Line Designer, and go into this clamp and launch my automation designer and actually open the clamps, close them, make sure they have enough clearances to go through everything. I have this single integrated model in NX, and I'm just switching between functions and applying two functions on at the same time. And I'm now just applying some logic that I already had in my reuse library. And if I have the part out of there, I can just go through here real quick. And it's taking, I shouldn't say real quick. I'm just making sure I got the right libraries and the right pieces. And I'm mapping everything to this new data set. And I have sensors built into it, so I know when things are closed and opening, and I can actually just now test for that. So different points, different systems. There's actually some testing that I'm doing here just to make sure there's code that is sequencing, but eventually I can actually just test. Oops, but sorry about that. I ended the animation too early. But I can actually test the code against that. So my mechatronics, I can actually electronics portion of it and actually use my PLC code that I'm actually going to run these tools and link it to that drawing and actually open the clamps based on the programming of the electronics. So it's very helpful. Launch this one separately, but here we're talking about linking some of the automation tools to our parts. So here I have a line designer, but I have automation. So I have guys writing code for PLCs. I have specific sensors. I can actually put that information into my model, and you can see the names that they're actually calling the items, and I'm linking it back to that. That way, when I go to do my programming, everything is named the same way. Sensor 1 is called Sensor 1 in all versions of this. My CAD line designer file of that sensor and my programming that I'm putting in my PLC. So I can actually link that information together. Going through this common backbone of Teamcenter allows me to have that single source of truth. Aligning and distributing items. There's just some improved ways to do it. This is in the latest version, but it just allows me to grab components, align them pretty easy, and apply that. And apply, I took that first one and said, making sure everything aligns to it, and it does. I can actually distribute them across that distance, and it spaces them out. So I have even spacing between it. So it just makes managing this a little simpler. Before you had to just put one in each place and measure it, but now I can actually make sure everything's aligned clearly and concisely where I want them to be. Latest version is it's going to be an add-on that's coming out here real shortly, but you'll be able to do this in virtual reality. So you'll be able to add the goggles and with my sensors actually walk through a plant, teleport to different locations through the plant. I can measure things. You can see in this bottom area here. I can cut sections all in a virtual reality world. You have to use HTC Vive, but it allows you to do this in a virtual reality world. Another thing we can do is now fly-throughs. So using your arrow keys, your up arrow, your down arrow, your left and right, I can actually fly through the plant and walk through it. So I'm using my set of eyes walking through the plant so I can see it from that level. I can also record it and then play it back as a video, which is, I shouldn't say video, it replays it back live, but that way I can show the team, what I saw when I did it by myself. So it's a great way now to see the plant from a person's point of view, or maybe a high overview, just to see what's going on. I can zoom in certain features, back up, and then see it at a high level again. Lastly, they've allowed PERT charts to come in here. So I now can create my charts that basically say, here's op 10, here's op 20, here's op 30, and display them. So what's kind of nice is I got this little line here, and I can now, I know where op 10 is, I know where op 20 is, but I can actually make that in a graphical format. You can see on the bottom left. The bottom right has the line, but here it is. Here's my different line. I got my different operations, and here they're in a linear process because it's following that line, but I can actually arrange it like it did on the bottom to match the flowing on the line. You notice they're connected. When I step on them, the cell highlights where that operation is going on. So it's a great tool now that I can show it on the plant floor, but also in a flow diagram that people understand, especially when you get into the complicated one at the bottom. Well, if this is true, then do that. If statements based on different processes, and I can see it in a graphical format over and above what's going on the plant floor. So basically, this comes down to line designer. It's great customer value. I can make a digital twin of my plant floor quickly, easily, make sure it's common through all my different iterations of that plant floor and the different uses that I have with it. Make sure there's one single source of truth, and make sure that everybody is aware of every change because they have that same single source of truth. So want to wrap this up. I see there's some questions out there. I'm going to try to answer these. Let me go through these. So when you set a due date for a part order, can you set up automatic notification of any kind to remind you? Out of the box, no, but there is a way to custom program a script for that. So if I have a long lead time item and that date's coming up, we can actually have email notification done through a script that reads through that and conveys back to you, hey, you better release this part early because it's a long lead time item, so I need to order it now so it's on the plant floor when the rest of my parts are there. So that's a great question. Would I be able to get a recorded session of this? I missed some due to another meeting. No problem. At the end of this meeting, we're going to reply to everybody and actually give a link to this webinar once we post it up to the website. It's going to take about a day to process it because we got to download it from the web and such. But yes, we will be able to hand that out to everybody, and you can get it, just from attending this meeting. What's the learning curve for this? It's not that hard. You saw a lot of the stuff is drag and drop. A typical training class is 2 to 3 days, and half of the class is teaching it, and the other half is just using it and making sure everybody understands how to use it. Trickier things are setting up the automation for the drawings, but to actually do the 3D design and everything, it's fairly intuitive. If you are somebody who are usually creating your line layout, this is a great tool. It simplifies your current process. And if you understand things like, for this operation, I got to put palm buttons in, so you got to make that into the 3D design. So I put that in there so the operators can be free and safe of the work cell and they can hit the palm buttons. So, okay, so here I have another one here. With the part ordering feature, if you reuse a design with this program, remember who the part order was from in the future designs? Oh yeah, every time I have a part, I can actually put a vendor in there. So let's say I'm buying widgets from Acme, the Acme company. I'm Wile E. Coyote, and I'm buying everything from Acme. Well, Acme is a big multinational company, and my local reseller is, XYZ machine company who has an office in downtown. So not only I can put an Acme, but I can actually say we bought this from XYZ. So we can put that in there. And I know folks that actually put purchasing information in these things to say what they paid and who they bought it from. So in the future, they have references on what they've done in the past. So when the new sales guy comes in and says, hey, I'm going to get these guys and I'm going to say it's $100 for this. Well, I paid 80 in the past. You got some good legs there to argue with. So yes, you can actually reuse this information and put in who you actually bought it from in addition to who makes it. So it's a great tool for that. So I think that's it for the questions. So that was great. So I want to thank everybody for being here. I want to definitely thank Madeline. Any words of wisdom, Madeline?
Yes, and great job, Curtis. Again, thank you everyone for joining today's webinar. Before you sign off, make sure you access the handouts in the GoToWebinar dialog box. And additionally, you can expect an email tomorrow, like Curtis said, with the on-demand webinar. And then additionally, we do have more webinars coming up next week, with next Tuesday being Reduce, Reuse, Ready, Maximize Reusable Designs with Product Template Studio. That information will also be in the email tomorrow, but if any questions come up between now and then, you can either reach out to sales@goplm.com or just respond to tomorrow's email. But thank you again for joining, and great job, Curtis.